there ever a time, well, is there ever more of a time in between Christmas and New Year's that every adult just hates themselves?
Pretty much, yeah.
It's just a ugh
yes
feeling.
That is exactly what it feels like. Yeah. Although this year, I feel like it's not as pronounced as usual because it's not that different from how I've been feeling for the majority of 2020 anyway. But yeah, ugh is a good way to describe it.
It's usually because there's so many leftovers and maybe not us in particular, but people have candy in their stockings and stuff, and you're just consuming the leftover junk.
Yeah. We always have a lot of leftover cheese, like cheese and crackers and stuff. That's how you just eat cheese. And we usually get a few bottles of wine as gifts. So it's like cheese and wine.
Oh, I don't mind that. Wine, you can...
Yeah, but it's like every day for a week because we're on vacation. And it's like, yeah.
On vacation. We have the week off.
We're staying home as usual, except we don't have to go to our computers and work.
Yeah. Welcome to While She's Napping. I am Adam.
And I'm Cindy.
So this is our 2020 in review episode. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that my tirade on the Santa Claus was well received in last week's episode. Apparently, a lot of people feel the same way.
Did they say that?
Well,
or they just thought it was funny.
A lot of people left laughing.
Yeah.
Responses.
Yeah. I think your reaction was hilarious. You were so passionate.
Well, I mean, we don't have to get into it, but we rewatched the movie.
Yeah, and I still love it.
And Charlie's a psychopath.
I know. There's that one line. I know.
I don't want to get into it. We'll save it for next year.
Sure.
But the Christmas episode was well received, and of course, we hope all of you had a good Christmas, if that is what you celebrate. If not, we hope you had a good holiday season. We hope New Year's Eve for you, whatever you choose to do, is safe and everything you want it to be. Because, I mean, we've mentioned this on a previous show. The year 2020, a lot of people are anxious for it to be over. And I think because of that, they're going to welcome 2021 quickly and eagerly in comparison to previous New Year's celebrations.
Right. Yeah, I think even though obviously in terms of the pandemic and everything, like turning the calendar to 2021 doesn't necessarily mean anything in and of itself, but I just think it's representative of kind of a fresh start of a better year to come.
Well, there's hope.
Yes.
We hope.
Right.
There's hope. We hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you do not know what we are referring to when we're talking about the Christmas episode, or rather when we refer to the Christmas episode, we invite you to dig into the archives and check that episode out. If you are still in the Christmas/holiday season, we invite you to listen to that episode. And a matter of fact, we invite you to check out all of our episodes in the archive. If you see a topic of discussion that sort of entices you to give it a listen, please feel free to do so. And while you're there, if you have not subscribed already, please do. Gently caress, like a pink flesh thing.
Wow.
Gently caress the subscribe button.
Wow.
And don't smash it. You know, people with new iPhones for Christmas, you don't want to break your phone. Just gently caress it. The same result with more favorable, reactions. I don't know. Just subscribe to the show. And if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a quick review plus 5 stars. We appreciate it. Whether you're coming from Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, we appreciate the participation. We appreciate the listen and the download. We hope you can stick around. And speaking of which, if you'd like to interact with us on our social media platforms, you can. You can visit.
We are on Facebook at facebook.com/while she's napping. on Instagram at While She's Napping or on Twitter at She's Napping Pod, or you can email us at whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
We are inevitably going to skip over things when it comes to this episode.
Of course.
In reviewing 2020, because when I went through the mega list of shit that happened, a lot of it was, oh yeah.
Yeah. It was like one thing after another all year.
So I'm going to try to go chronologically here, and what I want to do is for the first half of the episode, I sort of want to have a reaction from what happened from January to June, and the second half of the episode we'll do the remainder of the year. But before we get into specifics, just a general scope here. Do you consider, now, bear in mind, a lot of shit has happened in human history, okay? And I'm not trying to downplay coronavirus. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the Black Plague and, the 1918 flu, those were big deals. And in terms of the numbers of fatalities, they greatly outweigh what's happening now with COVID. That does not mean that this is not significant. I guess what I'm trying to illustrate here is that as bad as COVID has been in 2020, it is not the worst pandemic in human history.
True, but it's also not over.
I'm just saying, yeah. I don't think we're going to hit those numbers.
No, probably not.
During the pandemic, maybe during the lifetime of COVID-19, because it will never go away. It's just...
Sure.
In this short period of time where it is considered a pandemic, I don't think it's going to take away as many people as 1918 did.
Well, that makes sense considering that medicine is a lot more advanced than it was during the time of those pandemics.
The reason why I'm bringing this up is, do you consider this to be the worst year in human history? And this doesn't even have to be exclusively designated to COVID. It could be everything.
I mean, no, probably not.
Would you consider it the worst year in modern history?
Probably. I mean, definitely in my lifetime.
The worst year in your lifetime?
I mean, probably.
So since 1988, this has been probably the worst year.
That I can remember. Yeah. I mean, we obviously had some pretty sad losses in the last few years.
Right.
You know, we had a couple of family members pass away, so that was really hard too in like the 2018 timeframe. But this year was pretty bad.
Yeah, and look, I'm not trying to downplay anything. It's hard for me to grasp the reality of and the weight of how bad 2020 has been. And this isn't the first time I've mentioned this on the show. My life relatively has remained the same through and through. But obviously, as an outsider, seeing all the things that have been not only emotionally impactful, but sociologically impactful, scientifically impactful, epistemically impactful, I can see why this is such a big deal, 2020. And I mean, I know I say this in a point of privilege, but for me, 2020, the things that have happened, I've been sort of passive in terms of being directly impacted by those things.
Right. It's presented us with challenges for sure, but we are definitely more fortunate than a lot of people in terms of the fact that we've been able to keep our jobs, and none of us have contracted COVID. That we know of. We haven't lost anyone close to us or had anyone become very sick. Like, we've relatively, our close circle of family and friends have stayed healthy. So from that perspective, we're very, very fortunate, and It could have been a lot worse. But that's not to say that it hasn't been very anxiety inducing and stressful. And that it hasn't put strain on a lot of our relationships with our family and friends who we can't see. Or maybe not strain is the right word, but just
a new
being
lens.
Distanced. Well, I just mean the fact that we haven't been able to maintain or grow our relationships with a lot of people in our lives the way that we normally would. It's like we lost a year of, interacting socially and having those types of experiences that, cement and enhance your relationships with people. So, I mean, that sucks. But yes, in the big picture, I recognize that we've gotten through it a lot more unscathed than many other people. So I'm very, and neither of us are frontline workers or, like we haven't been on the front lines. And so I part of me feels like we don't really have a lot to complain about from that perspective. We've been kind of just, sitting tight and trying to wait it out. And so I feel fortunate for that, but it's still been a shitty year. And just knowing how many people are going through those types of hard things it's just dark.
Yeah. Yeah. I do consider this to be one of the years that, although terrible and, there have been really big eye-opening moments that this year has presented to us. I look at it as a learning experience. I look at it as a growth portion of my life that, age 34, 35, I just turned 35. I didn't necessarily think that those type of impactful big moments would present themselves anymore. Right. I just thought that throughout my life, I'd pick up little pieces of how to grow. I never really considered the magnitude of something that 2020 could bring me, whether it's how people handle really, really severe and stressful situations, racial issues, political issues, and how we conduct political discourse. There have been a lot of eye-opening moments for me that I can reflect on 2020 and say that was a big growing year for me. And whether you consider this a good or a bad thing, I think it's a good thing considering those learning experiences. I do think 2020 is going to be a really big, at least like psychological reflective years in textbooks for years to come.
Yeah, it definitely illuminated a lot of the things in our society that many of us have been, blissfully ignorant to if we had the privilege of doing that, if it wasn't, directly affecting us. And I think it definitely did illuminate different viewpoints that people have, and I think it made us dig deeper into our relationships, even though we haven't been interacting with people that much, which I think has been an odd really interesting dynamic that we're kind of like observing from a distance and like assuming what we think other people are thinking and how they're handling different things, like you said, politics and the pandemic itself and the racial injustice things that we've seen this year, and so much being highlighted. And it's like you think you're getting a peek into what people are thinking just through social media and everything, but you're not sitting down over a beer or a cup of coffee or like getting together for whatever, a dinner, like a house party or whatever. Like you're not going to someone's house for a campfire and just like shooting the shit and having these conversations. And I feel like it would have been a very, very different discourse if that had been happening throughout all of these significant events this year, if we had had the opportunity to do that. Because I feel like we're just not really talking to people in the same way.
Had there not been COVID, you mean?
Yes, yes. If the pandemic hadn't been happening alongside all of the racial injustice things. On the one hand, maybe that's why it was highlighted so much, is because everyone was just like glued to their phones and everyone's home and like in this vacuum. And so it was...
I don't know that the and I could be speaking out of turn. I don't know that the protests in terms of the racial injustice would be as intense without the pandemic, because I think it was so compounded by the need to want to get out as well. And I'm not saying that was the main focus, but you had people's anxieties already sky high as a result of just the pandemic. And then these terrible events happened on film that I think when you put those two things together, it creates this, I don't know, this cocktail of we need to go out and do something about this.
Well, I think it was.
I think people were extra motivated
and extra vulnerable and emotional already.
Yeah.
And if there are a lot of people who were out of work, they had the time and the space to like dive a little bit deeper and pay more attention than they normally would have.
Or unfortunately, they were thinking about it more than. Fortunately and unfortunately, especially if you're a person of color, maybe work life would have otherwise, I don't want to say distracted you, but maybe, I don't know, this wouldn't be on the forefront, as shitty as that might be to say. But if you lost your job as a result of this and you were a person of color, you are a person of color and you reside in one of these cities, especially that one of these terrible tragedies happened in, you might at that point be extra emotionally impactful by it because you're glued to your television, you're glued to the internet, and you see it more and more, and the conversations are happening more and more, and you see the tension more and more on whatever social media platform you're using, and you want to get out and do something about it.
I don't know. I feel like this could probably be its own episode entirely. I know we have a lot of other things we want to cover, but my impression is that it's not people of color who were like awakened and got out. No.
I'm saying
it's always been
extra motivated at this point to go out and do something.
No, I think that was for white people.
Oh, okay.
Because this was it seemed to me, as someone who had this reaction as a white person who has not really been super active or involved in any of these social issues until this year for some reason, and I know this is like a phenomenon that has happened with many white people this year, that this light bulb went off. And there was something about it, something about the timing, something about the state of mind that we were in, the fact that we weren't as distracted as we normally were. I think the vast majority of the Black community has been well aware and well motivated and passionate about what's been happening for a very long time.
Right.
It was the white community that was behind and not paying attention. I think that was the shift that happened this year.
All right, I don't want to bury the lead on that, and I don't mean any disrespect. We obviously are going to cross paths with it again. But let's start from the beginning. So I think the thing that kicked off, or at least was the trailer to how bad 2020 was going to be, was the Australian fires.
That's right.
This seems like a distant memory. It started in December of 19, but it obviously went heavy into 2020, and that was, us living in the United States, coverage of it was very fickle. But if you were on social media, for me specifically Twitter, you saw it every day, or at least I did.
Yeah, I always saw the posts about people doing fundraisers for like to help injured koalas who had like burned feet and stuff.
Or you see the helicopters go, and you see the front, the mirror, or rather the windshield of the helicopter coming in. All you see is orange out their windows, and it's just the Australian fires. And I think that was I don't know, some external force being like,
canary in the coal
shit's
mine.
coming. It's coming.
Well, for me, I thought that was going to be a major maybe not major, but I thought that was going to be a significant shift in how we started talking about climate change.
Yeah.
But I remember being very peeved by seeing those koala fundraiser things. Not that, I mean, don't get me wrong, I love koalas. Like, I'm not against helping animals in need, but it annoyed me that was the focus of everyone. Was like, let's fix this. Like, it was like a Band-Aid solution, like literally, like let's help these animals in need right now. And there was not as much conversation about the reason why they were experiencing these wildfires in the first place.
Right.
So that annoyed me. And so I thought that was going to be like the jumping off point for that to have a focus in 2020.
Well, to our Australian listeners, I hope a year later things are better
I know. I don't even know what's
I
going on.
don't even know because
anymore.
I'm sorry, it just sort of got lost in the shuffle for us, at
Mhm.
least here. I don't know. The next big event, and this doesn't really necessarily matter to me that much, but our friends in the UK might have something to say about this. The Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just fucking bouncing from the royal
That's
family.
right.
That happened in January.
When was Brexit? Was that last year?
No, that happened in 2020.
It did.
Brexit.
That's what I thought you were
going to
say.
Yeah.
God.
So
Okay.
that was Megxit.
I didn't know it was called that.
Yeah, Megxit happened in January, and Brexit happened in late January,
Like right
early
after.
February. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay. See, all this, the wildfires in Australia and Brexit feel like a decade ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And this is something like, I don't know how big of a deal that is. You know, the only way I can relate to that is when you consider the presidency, right? Just consider Trump, for example, because he's the sitting president right now. To me, if his daughter and Kushner were like, all right, we're out, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Is that a big deal? That doesn't seem like a big deal to me. So I don't know. I know the royal family is a different thing. It's a different entity than, you know, the president of the United States. There's a bloodline in the royal family.
Royal family is, they're not elected. They're
There's
born
a
into
bloodline,
it.
right?
So, I'm saying if an elected official was just like, peace out, like, I know I ran for office and you chose me to serve in this role, but I'm out. Like, that would be a little bit different.
Whereas Ivanka, that's her name, right?
The daughter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't elected for anything, so...
Yeah, she doesn't hold office.
No, she had
A title?
a government position, yeah. I'm just saying, if her and Kushner were like, yo, I'm out, for an American, it'd be like, all right, fucking hey, see ya, well, you're replaced. But for someone in the UK, speaking as an American, I don't know how big of a deal
Right. No, I'm
that
saying it's
was.
a little bit different when it's an appointed
No, I get the
person.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying... I would like someone from the UK
to weigh in on
see
the
how
impact of that.
big of a deal, because you see the Queen and she looks pissed every time you see her look at Meghan Markle. She's like, you really fucked everything up. And I don't know if the people in the UK feel the same, or they're like, yeah, fuck that shit, get out.
Yeah, I don't know. Fun fact, you caught her
I didn't
on
know she was on Deal
or
or No Deal. Yeah.
We talked a while ago about how I've been obsessed with that. It's like my mindless
I forget
brain
what
numbing
case she
thing.
was.
And 24, I think.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and you were like, "Is that?" And
That's fucking Meghan Markle.
Yeah, and I'd been watching Deal or No Deal forever, and I never noticed it.
The orchestrator of Megxit
Yeah,
had her own briefcase on Deal or No Deal.
Uh-huh.
It started from the bottom. Now we're here.
Right.
Kobe Bryant died on January
also feels
26th.
That feels like forever ago.
Yeah. There's going to be a lot of deaths from very influential and impactful people. And besides maybe RBG, this specifically hit me the hardest.
Oh, I remember you coming into the bedroom in the morning and you were like glued to your phone and like
No,
pacing.
it happened during the day.
That I don't remember then.
Yeah,
I remember you
yeah.
coming into the bed. Maybe I was folding laundry or something, but you came in and you were glued to your phone and pacing. And I was like, what is the matter? And you were like, psh, psh,
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant just died. You were just like, yeah, I remember that was like a really,
It was
a big deal.
It wasn't so much, and again, not to take away from his importance.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't so much that he died, it was him and his daughter.
Right. And initially, as the reports were coming in, it was confusion. There was confusion about who was actually in the helicopter and if it was his entire family. And at one point, we thought it was him and all of his children. And his wife was the only surviving member of his family. And I was like, oh my, like I could not even fathom that. Like that. As parents, I feel like that was what.
Well, that's what it was
hit
impactful
us. Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
Is he could do nothing.
Right.
Except lie to her. And I don't mean that in a bad way. You
right,
do
to say
that
everything's
as a father.
okay.
Everything's going to be all right.
I know, it's heartbreaking. Right. And there were other families in the crash as well who went through that same experience. And it was really heartbreaking to think about that.
Trump was impeached in February. Right?
Yeah.
That seems like so 2019. but that happened in 2020.
I can't believe this all happened in 1 year.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was impeached and acquitted. Sorry, he was impeached earlier. He was acquitted on February 5th.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before the political coverage switched to the election.
Yep.
It was all about the impeachment. Yep.
Parasite won a shit ton of Oscars. We watched it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
I think like 5 or 6
Wow.
Oscars. And I didn't even think the movie was that good.
I didn't either. I mean, I watched it, but I don't. Yeah.
It was entertaining. It had
Yeah.
its moments of humor.
It was very different. It was a very unique film.
I don't mind foreign language films. I don't mind it at all.
No, but I mean, the whole I just remember, like, I had never seen a movie like that. It was very unique.
Yeah, and it was available for free on Amazon.
Yeah.
And, whatever. That happened on February 9th.
Okay.
So we're getting closer, I guess. Harvey Weinstein was found guilty of a bunch of terrible stuff in late February.
Yep.
I didn't really know who this person was, but apparently he was the catalyst, I should say, for the Me Too movement.
Mm-hmm.
And because of his actions and his
Crimes?
Yes. And the verdict and conviction, this started the Me Too movement. And again, for lack of a better way to put this, it sort of got lost in the shuffle, right?
Because
and that's not to downplay.
Right before
yes,
the shit hit the fan.
That's not to downplay the importance of the movement. It's just that's not really something that people are talking about anymore, or at least not
through the rest of the year. Like it hasn't been in the headlines. That's true. Yeah.
The racial injustice, which again we'll get to, has permeated. It's still here. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Me Too movement has sort of faded in the background.
Right. It's not in the headlines.
It's not.
It's still happening. It's still.
No, I'm not saying it's not something that we should value. I'm just saying in terms
right. But imagine if the pandemic hadn't happened and the shit hadn't hit the fan in March for the U.S., that would have stayed in the headlines longer, and I think people would have been paying more attention to it and talking about it for longer than we did.
Apparently, we had a stock market crash in March.
I don't.
News to me.
That because of coronavirus?
March 9th. It was the stuff.
I think that was when everybody panicked because we knew that it was in the U.S. and it was
Dow Jones
things were going to shut down.
Average suffered its worst single day point drop ever on March 9th.
Yeah, because that is right before everything locked down.
Yeah,
that's like a week before.
March 15th is when coronavirus stuff happened, and it was kickstarted by the NBA. And it's crazy to me that the NBA, we've talked about this on our previous episode, the NBA was what kicked off everything stopping. The NBA was the first thing to stop everything.
Yeah.
And it took one positive case.
Mm-hmm. And then they maintained that level of, success, I guess, in terms of containing it and playing safely once they resumed.
Months later, I think in June.
Yeah.
But yeah, the NBA they had one positive case. Because I remember this because the MLB had positive cases before this and they were going to continue.
Right.
And the NBA, Rudy Gobert got tested positive. He was the first, and he was the one that made a joke about it.
Right.
He was touching all the microphones saying, scared of coronavirus, touched every microphone. He ended up getting it and passing it on to his teammates, but at the time, he was the only confirmed case, and they shut everything down, and as a result, everything else shut down.
Right.
Everything.
Yeah.
Schools.
And you dodged a bullet with that because you were in Boston shortly before that happened, right?
So
in February?
In February, there was a large conference, G1 or something like that. I don't know. It was a large conference, and one person was infected, and he was symptomatic. He was exhibiting symptoms, but this was so new. It was at the Encore Hotel and Casino, and I was there doing a podcast, and that one person we can trace back, I think, 10,000 cases to that one event.
Yep.
And I was there.
Yeah.
And that was one of the last times, if not the last time, that I was among a large group of people in bars and restaurants.
That was a weird few weeks, like the end of February until the middle of March, when things kind of shut down, because it was like people were kind of like joking about it, like doing elbow bumps, and we weren't shaking hands, and people were being like, I remember, I put Purell in my purse, which I didn't normally carry, and I was being careful about touching surfaces and washing my hands and whatever, but no one was distancing. Masks weren't a thing.
Nope.
I was still thinking it wasn't even where we were, because I remember too, the first week of March, I attended a conference, and it was an international conference. And I remember there were even presenters there who led some of the sessions I went to who were from Washington, which is where the first outbreaks in the U.S. started, in Seattle, I think. And I remember being there thinking, oh, this isn't great. Like, I should be really careful. And I just remember washing my hands a bunch. But yeah, we were still like not thinking that it was really widespread throughout the country. We thought it was in these isolated pockets. There were probably a lot of cases like that where people had a cold or the flu or whatever and just didn't think that COVID was here at that point. But I'm sure it was.
Also, there was a locust swarm in Africa.
Oh, God.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
So now we have the biblical plagues.
Were happening. They were saying, we're coming for you.
Yeah.
Also around this time, obviously, we're going to get to the protests, but I think the biggest media thing to happen, that when people look back and they say, what was the big media, and I know I just talked about Parasite, but what was the big media thing that happened that was all the rave? Tiger King.
That's right.
That was an obsession.
Yeah. That was early in quarantine.
I'm telling you, if it was not for the pandemic, that
wouldn't
probably wouldn't have taken off.
No, because literally everybody was just in their house watching Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah. That's hilarious. I forgot about Tiger King.
And Tiger King was the shit.
Yeah. And Carol Baskin is like a household name now.
Yes.
She was on Dancing with the Stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so the Black Lives Matter protests happened shortly after the pandemic began.
Really? I thought it was a little bit more delayed because
April, May.
Well, George Floyd died in late May, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is when, like, obviously nothing could have happened in March into April because lockdowns and stuff.
Right.
So this stuff happened mid-April, and not just George Floyd, just the amalgam of everything happened.
Well, that was kind of the tipping point, though.
Right.
I think, yeah. And then in June, I remember like Blackout Tuesday was in June, and the major protests started.
I think that outside of the pandemic is what people are going to look back on and say that is the biggest learning experience you could have coming out of 2020 is, and I hate to draw lines, but where do you stand now after being illuminated to this? If you knew nothing of systematic racial inequality, for me, speaking as a white person, it's inexcusable, but at the same time, I understand why you would be so unaware of it because of the privilege that you've been experiencing throughout your whole life. But after the unnecessary deaths and the protests, if you didn't do any sort of soul searching, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
The accessibility of the information now and how easy it is to go on social media, to go on Instagram, to go on YouTube, to go on Netflix and find these really like digestible, understandable, sort of simplified versions of these complicated topics. Podcasts. Right. There's so many things out there, books that you can. It just doesn't take that much. I don't mean to oversimplify it. I'm just saying that
No, it's at your fingertips.
It is, and it's available so widely and so prominently. It has been this year that it's like to me now it feels like willful ignorance. If you're saying, "Well, I just don't get it. I'm just not aware," then I feel like you've kind of intentionally turned a blind eye to it. I don't know how you can't at this point. With the way the conversation has happened this year, I don't know how you can't see it at this point.
Apparently in April, there was a rumor, strong rumors, that Kim Jong-un was dead.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Fuck, man. I remember when we were almost going to go to war with North Korea. Mm-hmm. But apparently there was a time where he was going to pass. Anyways, let's take a pause there. But before we do, I think the first half of 2020 was far more impactful than the second. And that's not to downplay the election of Joe Biden. That's not to downplay any of the COVID conspiracy theory people that we're going to get into in the rise of QAnon. But I do think that, looking back, I said this already, the Black Lives Matter protests and the movement, that had to have been the biggest and most impactful thing, at least for me, looking back at 2020, outside of COVID, obviously, because
it's all related too. I mean, the Black Lives Matter is mostly centered around, or it has been illuminated by the police brutality and the shootings and everything. But I mean, there's racial injustice in everything in terms of when you're talking about COVID and how, communities of color have been disproportionately impacted by that. So it's like, and obviously with the election and politics that affect or make these injustices more severe, it's all connected. Yeah.
And for me, if you're going to, you look at the 60s, right? And you had the hippie movement, the anti-Nixon movement, but at the forefront was the Vietnam War. So you sort of have a movement being jump-started by, or rather, I wouldn't say influence, but at least there's a relation to something that is on the forefront of people's minds, right? So the forefront of the people's minds in 2020 is coronavirus. Obviously, coronavirus is not what kickstarted the Black Lives Matter movement, but you have these two big things. And obviously, when you look back on 2020, everyone's going to say that's the year of COVID. They just will. Right. And that's not, again, to downplay the BLM movement. But if you had to choose, and again, it's a poor choice of words, but if you had to use a secondary identifier for the year 2020, it was the year of at least recognition of racial injustice.
I agree with that. In my lifetime, I've never seen this type of momentum.
Right.
On such a large scale.
All right, let's take a pause here, and when we come back, we'll finish out the shitty year that was 2020. Hang tight. All right. Heading into the mid portion of 2020, that is when we discovered that Joe Biden, before we knew he was going to be president-elect, was going to be the Democratic nominee.
Right. That was the end of the primaries.
Yes.
Yep.
And
That's right. So we didn't even talk about there was like leading up to all this were the primary debates.
Yeah.
When there were like 20 candidates on stage.
Bloomberg and Yang and Warren. Kamala was up there.
Beto.
Yeah, Pete was up there. It all just came down to Bernie and Biden.
That's right. And that was even in the beginning of the pandemic. Remember, they were 6 feet apart and during the debates. Yep.
Bernie fought to the end.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that happened, and I'm on record of saying I didn't think he was going to win. But, when people are really, really ambitious and motivated to get something done, I guess they proved me wrong, which is fine with me.
Yeah, I feel like it might be sort of a similar phenomenon as what we were talking about with, the momentum behind the Black Lives Matter movement and all the people paying more attention than they have in past years. I think that there was probably something similar happening with this election of, people like me. I mean, I was still working, but still, I'm not doing anything social. I'm not doing anything outside of work and just, being with my family. So I had more time than normal to focus on politics and to get involved to a certain extent. But I feel like it was that way for a lot of people, that they had more space to get involved, and that the stakes were clearly so high that it felt like a very different election.
We didn't even talk about toilet paper.
Yeah. Well, that was stupid.
We didn't even talk about toilet paper and how people were freaked out when this first happened.
Yeah, but my theory about that.
Well, it's still going on.
Right, but my theory.
Yeah, I know. Once someone says it, it just goes like wildfire.
Right.
Heading into July, Kanye ran for president.
Also
Kanye
stupid.
West, endorsed by Elon Musk, ran for president.
Doesn't Elon Musk have COVID now, or had it?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure he had it.
He'll
recently.
buy his way out of it.
I know.
Who
He
cares?
does have access, just like Trump did, to all the best.
He'll probably
medical care.
invent it.
Yeah, he'll come out with the vaccine in like 2 days.
Yeah. So Kanye
That's
was...
not how it works.
I think the whole thing about Kanye was legit. He was trying to encourage or take away votes from the black community, take away votes from Biden within the black community to him. I think that was literally his goal. I think he came out and said it. He said, someone asked him, is your goal to take away Democratic votes to you in order to help President Trump?
Mm-hmm.
And he roundabout way came out and said, that's exactly what's happening. I don't know what I'm trying to tell you. Yes, I'm trying to take their votes away.
What other motivation would there be?
To be president?
But it was obvious that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
Like
people think there was this, because he was MAGA,
mm-hmm.
that this was orchestrated by him and Trump to sort of take away votes.
I didn't follow this very closely. I don't follow Kanye closely. I've seen a few of the clips from when he was doing rallies and everything, like towards the end.
Right.
He did not sound like a
No,
man.
he's not well.
Like he has bipolar or something, right? I mean, he has some mental health.
I don't know.
I don't want to make fun of him or downplay it. I think that he's dealing with some serious mental health issues.
I don't know of a single person that is dated or married to a Kardashian that doesn't have issues.
But that's what I don't want to make a joke about it. It's not a joke.
Well, because I don't know if it's an act.
I don't think it is.
Because he considers himself an artist. So I don't know if this is kayfabe.
Okay, I guess that could be possible. But I thought that it was like pretty well documented that he had.
I don't know.
And he hadn't been on his medication and things like that. And he was really not well.
I don't know.
I don't know for sure either. I'm just keep that in the back of my mind. I don't want to make fun of him or like make a huge joke out of it, because this could also just be someone who's like mentally ill and not getting the support they need. So
could be.
Yeah. But either way, that was crazy.
Jeffrey Epstein's girlfriend?
Yeah.
Maxwell?
Right.
Ghislaine? I don't know how to say her first name.
I can't remember either.
Anyways, she was arrested on July 2nd and for assisting Epstein in
And what did
sex
Trump
trafficking.
say about her? That she was
I wish her well.
I wish her well. That's right.
I wish her well.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, she doesn't have the luxury prison, and she wants out. It's not working out.
Yeah.
So that happened, and that's ongoing. So we can wait for that. Murder hornets.
That's right.
Fucking murder hornets almost came and destroyed our lives.
Yeah. But
We
not
blocked
really.
that plan. No, we found them in Washington State.
Yes. That's
Yeah,
it.
they found a hive.
Yeah. But that's it.
But
They're
I'm just
not-
saying they destroyed a bunch of honeybee colonies.
But they didn't spread. It was pretty isolated, right? I mean, they just had that
As far
one.
as I know, they only found one hive, and
Right.
there was. But I'm saying that one hive destroyed. There was an entire farm,
Mhm.
honeybee farm, that got fucking wiped out
Yeah. That's
because
terrible.
of them.
Yeah.
And this was not a farm. This is someone's work.
Oh, I get it. But again, this is I'm having a similar moment to the koala bear wildfire moment where our honeybees are constantly being threatened by the pesticides and
Yes,
things
but
that
these
we
were
use.
murder hornets.
I know, but it's an isolated incident of one location, even if it was a lot of honeybees. I just feel like it's a what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't
It's
know.
an acute issue. It's like one blip versus these larger issues that we have. I don't know. That's my biologist mind can't can't think that way.
Listen, apparently they got them. I don't even know what the theory is of how they got here.
I don't know either, but I'm pretty sure they got them and they isolated it because it's not really being discussed anymore,
Well,
as far
we
as I
hope.
can tell.
We hope.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. Invasive species are no joke either.
Yeah. August 4th, remember Beirut exploded?
That's right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
The entire fucking city just exploded. And everyone thought it was a terrorist attack.
And that
but
was a headline for like 2 days.
like an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a huge explosion. And I remember that. And I think it's because people found out that it wasn't a terrorist attack, and they're like, oh, all right.
There was like no conspiracy behind it.
All right.
What was it? It was like an industrial plant or something
Yeah.
like an accident.
Accidental detonation of 2,550 tons of ammonium nitrate. Killed 190 people at least.
Wow.
Thousands of others were injured. But it was an accident. And I think it's because it wasn't a terrorist plot or an attack. People were like, it happened.
Well, there's
Like,
nothing
outside of
political.
Ba-
There's
yeah.
nothing to,
Nothing
Right.
to see, time to move on. I'm not downplaying it.
Right.
This is why
Well, I
it
think
didn't get
people
enough.
can genuinely kind of, have a sense of grief and mourning and sadness for, wow, that's terrible. That many people died,
But it's
especially
an
just
accident.
a freak accident.
Yes.
Like, it's awful, but there's kind of not much more to say after that in terms
Right.
of dissecting. Like, there's no story behind it or anything,
Speaking of deaths, Chadwick Boseman,
Mm-hmm.
dead.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was suffering quietly.
He had cancer, right?
I think it was
Or is-
prostate cancer.
Yeah.
It's colon
So-
cancer,
Mm-hmm.
stage 3. And he was making films, everything, quietly,
Yeah.
just in the background, passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not to just make a link to specifically a superhero in the Black Panther, but from my understanding, and again, I don't want to speak for any demographic totally, but from my understanding, from what I've noticed on social media, the Black Panther superhero was highly valued
Yeah.
to the Black community. And his death was another,
Punch in the gut.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But hand it to Disney and Marvel for, at least honoring his death correctly. They're not going to recast that character
Yeah.
because he was the embodiment of it.
Right.
He also played Jackie Robinson
That's right.
in, what was the movie? 42?
I think that was what it was called. Yeah.
Great movie. Yeah. So, another terrible death. What else happened in 20? Oh, Kamala Harris was the vice president elect. Well, she was chosen.
The vice president elect.
She was chosen to be vice president.
Oh, in where are you? Like August, September?
This is August 11th.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Terrible. I mean, sorry, not terrible. I'm I'm jumping ahead to looking at the next one. Awesome that she was
historic.
Yes.
Yes.
And great that she's the vice president-elect. We did a whole episode.
It's true. I remember. I'm thinking now in terms of like the timeline. This was around the time that we were getting ready to have our house appraised for.
Oh, I gotta put a time out.
What
I'm saying terrible about is the West Coast fires because I jumped ahead. All right, so going back to
good
Kamala,
context for that. Anyway, I was thinking we were refinancing and trying to get our house ready for an appraisal. I remember I can remember listening to podcasts about these different events based on like what project I was doing around the house.
Yeah, we were. What were we doing to the wood down here?
Polyurethane, and we put up a new wall.
We were listening to an NPR podcast about him choosing Kamala.
That's right, and that was right after, because before that I was doing the trim upstairs in the bedrooms and the hallway, and that's when I was listening to all the episodes who were covering the options of the people he might pick. And then we moved down into the basement to do the polyurethane. That was after he picked. That's so funny. That's like how I remember the chronology of what happened. The only way to sort through and keep track of what happened this year.
Yep. What I was referencing as terrible, not Kamala, but yes, the California wildfires. We talked briefly to Chris and Sarah of MySpace with you about it, and fortunately,
who live in California,
as far as I remember, they weren't directly impacted by it. It wasn't necessarily in their area.
Right. This time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But living on the complete opposite coast, I do remember driving to work every morning and seeing a hazy orange sun as a result of all the smoke in the atmosphere from...
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's still going on, because for me, I just assume California has a fire somewhere.
Oh, I just think California is always on fire.
Yeah, they always do.
I think that's a safe assumption, that somewhere in California is on fire.
It's crazy.
At any given time.
And I remember that was a big deal. Chris Evans released a picture of his dick.
I miss that.
And
of all the things I miss in 2020.
And he owned it on social media, said, "It's my dick."
What was it on, like Snapchat or something?
I think he just accidentally put it out on an Insta story or something.
Oh my God.
And he just owned it.
That's hilarious.
I think when celebrities try to hide their nudes try to take them down,
it's worse.
People really want them.
Right.
But first of all,
I didn't even know that this happened.
No one wants to see a dick.
So however he handled it was effective.
Yeah. You just say, "That's my dick."
Yep.
Take it or leave it.
Okay.
And if it was... I'd like to think I'd do the same, and most people would just leave it. No, it's okay, Adam. The joke's on you. RBG passed away September 18th.
Yeah.
I remember telling you about that. That was rough.
That was rough.
Yep. I mean, you can speak to this more than I can.
I mean, I think we talked about it when it happened on another episode, but I just remember there were a lot of people who had been saying, you know, if 2020 takes RBG, like, I'm just going to, not know what to do with myself kind of thing. Like, it was kind of foreshadowed just because the year was going so terribly already, and everyone knew that she was,
But they just released a special on her on Netflix or Hulu or something, and she was curling 5 pounds.
Yeah, but when did they film that? And
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Still. Yeah, I mean, I think her health declined pretty rapidly at the end. I mean, she had her issues over the years, but I mean, at her age, I don't think it's and the level of stress that she had in her life,
to stay alive,
right? And just how hard she worked. I mean, she was just, she didn't sleep a lot. Like, she must have had so much anxiety and stress over her job. I mean, what she did for a living was round the clock.
Trump threatened to ban TikTok like 5 times.
Yeah.
And it's still up.
Still up. Yep.
People are still using TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
I remember...
He has a lot of disdain for social media, considering...
Well, the ones that make fun of him.
Yeah. So he doesn't have a problem with Twitter. 'Cause I think
he does now.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, he does.
I mean,
now.
does he realize that he was basically elected because of Twitter?
Probably not.
That's what I mean. Like, that's where he does everything. He fires people over Twitter and makes policy decisions over Twitter. Well, he tries. I mean, he can't legally do a lot of these things, but anyway, I digress.
Macaulay Culkin turned 40.
Wow.
We are old.
Mm-hmm.
This is a good one. Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Yeah, I remember that. That was great.
He's smart.
I'm surprised you remember.
Person, woman, man, camera, TV.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
People were really upset. This is going back to I'm jumping back. People were really upset about not being able to get haircuts, and when you juxtapose that with protests that actually mattered,
yeah,
you could really see the I don't know, the division in people. You have one group of people, specific group of people primarily, protesting for just equality. And not, we're lucky it's not revenge. They're protesting for just equality.
Yeah.
And you have another group of people wanting their fucking haircuts and their Applebee's.
Well, and, the haircut group will say, and here's the thing. Like, on social media and in the media in general, they're going to take the clips of the people who sound kind of stupid, who are complaining about the fact they didn't get their haircut. But obviously there are people who could be a little bit more articulate about why they're protesting. Like, it comes down to, like, they're protesting for their constitutional rights and everything, even though getting your haircut isn't a constitutional right. But like, my point is, you can boil it down to really idiotic, stupid things that make them just sound ridiculous, which for the most part, I agree that they are ridiculous. But I'm just saying there's a base argument there that they're trying to latch onto about their freedoms as Americans.
The people that argue the most about their liberties and protecting the Constitution have made it clear that they don't know the fucking Constitution.
Correct.
They think the Constitution says you can do anything, anywhere, no matter what,
without
and there's no problem.
Yeah,
right.
Without consequence.
You can go into a bookstore and not follow their mask mandate. There was a video recently about this dude that went to Barnes & Noble, and the manager was like, you need to put a mask on. And he flipped out. He said, no, this is a public space. And, I'm saying no one cares or bats an eye about no shirt, no service. You've never heard someone say, this is against my constitutional rights. I can come in here without a shirt if I want
or
to.
any sort of dress code. If you go to a fine dining restaurant
That's
and they say
saying.
you can't wear a hat and you can't wear jeans.
But no one cares.
Right.
But when it comes to a mask, apparently people care. I digress. Really showed people's colors and understanding of what the Constitution represents. Anyways, Trump got COVID in October. And defiantly took off his mask.
Heroically.
Yes.
Made it through.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Ebola came back in October.
It did?
It made a comeback.
Where?
In October. It was detected in the Congo in July, and it's over.
Yeah.
They got it, but it came back.
Scary. That disease is scary.
Lori Loughlin went to prison.
That's right. For the college tuition scandal.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So
right around the time that, when did Fuller House come out? That was last year.
No,
that
it came out way
I'm sorry. I mean
before
the most recent season, the final season
I
came out
don't
this
know.
year. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if she was on it. Probably not.
Let's see. Eddie Van Halen died.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Another tragic death. Even though I didn't really like the band Van Halen, I liked or appreciated his musical contributions. So it's always sad. Alex Trebek died. And, for me, I wasn't really a big Jeopardy guy, but he seemed like a smart guy. I mean, he's been on it since the beginning.
He's an icon.
And I just can't see Jeopardy continuing. It's supposed to. I forget who's taking his place, but it's supposed to continue. I can't see that.
Oh, I can't see how it can't continue. I mean, I know it's going to be different, but...
Could you see someone else doing Wheel of Fortune?
No, I guess not.
That's what I'm saying. I can't... Whatever.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire is still going without... But I think Regis left that a long time ago before he died.
I'm saying he didn't pass when
and
it
then
happened.
have someone take over. Right.
Rudy Giuliani was trying to get a blowjob in a Borat film. Hilarious.
I know.
That happened in 2020.
Now he has COVID too, I think.
Or just had it.
Yeah.
Obama published a book, a memoir, if you will.
Yep.
The Pentagon released UFO videos. No one fucking cared.
I didn't even see that.
No one cared. It was the perfect time to release UFO videos. They said, all right, we're going to unveil these documents.
What?
Yeah.
Says
and
who?
people were like, I don't fucking care right now.
How do you know that it's legit from the Pentagon?
The Pentagon officially released video footage of UFOs. And people are like, we don't have time for this shit.
No, but why would they release it?
Freedom of Information Act, I think.
Oh, it was a FOIA request.
I think so.
Interesting.
But people want to take that as, aliens are real. It's not what it means.
It just means they haven't identified
the
object.
We don't know what the fuck they are.
Right.
It's,
yeah.
Could be a really high-tech drone. I don't know. Probably not. But no one cared. People were like,
I'll have to look that up.
We're going to have to put this on pause right now.
Yeah,
because
that didn't
we
go
have
very far.
COVID and we have these protests we're dealing with. UFOs
when
can
was
wait.
This? September?
Around April.
Oh, this was, you just jumped way back. Okay.
I know, but it was a thing.
Okay.
So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm just jumping around at this point.
Okay.
What else happened? Obviously this is important. Joe Biden became president-elect, and I do think that this is the high
he became
point.
president-elect for the first time,
yes.
Right? Like, I feel like he became president like 20 times.
Well, I mean...
Like, every time they counted,
he's
every time...
officially almost.
That's what I mean. Like,
so, he was president-elect, sort of.
on November 7th.
And then, after that, he's president-elect, kind of. And then when they did the vote, he's president-elect pretty much until January 6th.
Yeah.
Well, he'll be president-elect pretty much now, almost. And then January 20th, he'll be president.
Right. Yeah, I feel like we've celebrated his win so many times.
The GOP is just peeling the onion. It's like,
right.
Well, there's another step.
Yeah.
So maybe not.
It was all the lawsuits at first with the counting of the votes, and it was one by one. They kept getting thrown out, but they kept thinking they had something else to fall back on. It's just,
Maybe not. There's a chance.
Yeah.
So hold your horses there, Joe.
On November 7th, he became president-elect when they called Pennsylvania.
Sort of.
No, they did. That's when they called it.
Yeah, but then,
that was the day.
But then the Senate and Congress had to vote.
I don't care.
And that's when McConnell was like, all right, now it's official.
Yeah. So the electors had to vote.
Now we could say it. Maybe.
Yeah.
January 6th has to happen.
Yeah.
Lastly, so far, the COVID vaccine was released, and Trump is calling this his greatest achievement. It's hard to argue, even though it's not his achievement. I don't know, and this is my political ignorance. Warp speed was his thing, so I don't know politically how much clout that carries.
I think I feel like it's mostly that the funding became available for the scientists to do their job. And I think we should do a whole episode on the vaccine or vaccines in general, maybe next month.
Yeah.
But there were opportunities to get more of the vaccine. I think like twice as many doses. From Pfizer, they had offered a deal earlier in the year, and the Trump administration turned it down. And now those vaccines have been reallocated to other countries. Other countries have, placed dibs basically. And it's going to be a while before, like, we could have had twice as many vaccines available to us from the jump. And to my knowledge, I don't know what the reason was behind why. Like, it was like nothing to lose in the deal that Pfizer was offering. And it's a mystery as to why the Trump administration turned it down. Yeah. So, I mean, it's great that scientists had what they needed to get the vaccine done in the amount of time that they did. It's amazing. And I know that the administration had something to do with that, but it could have been a lot better.
I think I already said lastly with the vaccine, but I really mean lastly. Fucking monoliths have been just popping up.
That's right.
Did you see the one in, I forget where it was, on Christmas? It was made of gingerbread.
Oh, interesting.
They've been popping up everywhere. There was one in Massachusetts.
I haven't been following. I saw the original one, like where it was in Utah. Yeah, I saw that one, and I haven't.
There's been all over the world.
Well,
it has to be a Reddit thing.
It's got to be.
And the one in Massachusetts, what are those things? The crop fields. What are they called? Crop circles. Yeah. There was a snow circle around it. Perfect. And people think
people have
aliens.
Too much time on their hands right now.
But the problem is people, they're up when people find them. The next day they're gone. But people have reported seeing other people take them away.
Of course.
But as soon as people see them, they're like, "Oh, aliens!" Why? Because it's 8 feet tall and metal.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's got to be something that gets caught on someone's security camera or ring, or like people
I don't
have
know, but
so
this
many.
is a fantastic art project.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And again, 2020,
yeah,
fucking
probably
monoliths.
read it. Mm-hmm.
Or if not, it's those fucking UFOs that no one cares about.
Back to the Pentagon story.
UFOs
in
are just like, all right, no one cares.
Yeah.
Maybe this will get their attention.
Right.
Maybe a gingerbread one.
That's really funny.
And everyone's like, nope, we don't care. No one cares. So we're going to do our 2021 episode next week.
Yeah.
Ringing in the new year.
Sure.
For 2021. But besides COVID, obviously besides racial injustice, or at least the illumination of it and sort of pushing back against the status quo when it comes to enabling systematic racism, or at least we're trying to do our part for that. Mm-hmm. What are you going to remember 2020 for? Do you want me to start?
I mean, no, I guess I wanted to make sure that this whole episode wasn't doom and gloom and like just.
There's not much good.
There's not, but I guess
Blue Jays made the playoffs.
Yeah, your teams did great. The Bills are still going, right?
Bills are doing strong. Blue Jays made the playoffs. Raptors made the playoffs. Had a great 7-game series against the Celtics.
There you go.
Can't complain.
But I guess there have been some odd things that have happened in 2020 in terms of connections with people that I don't think would have happened outside of the situation that we're in. So,
we started this project.
Sure. We started this in March.
Cool people.
Yep, absolutely. And I think, given that we have been disconnected from some of our other relationships and not seeing some of our friends and family as often.
We made new friends. All of you other people are replaced.
That's not what I'm saying.
You are replaced with our internet friends now.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we've continued to connect with our other friends and family in that way too, through the internet, through whatever, FaceTime, through Zoom, in whatever way we can.
Fucking Zoom.
But I'm saying I wouldn't have probably been chatting online with like acquaintances from years ago or whatever, who we just found out that we shared something in common, and you end up reconnecting over that because you're kind of like isolated. And I've just noticed there's different, I don't know, relationships and friendships have just been forming in such different ways, and it's weird, and it's but I don't know, I feel like it's kind of a silver lining.
I think 2020 is one of those years that we're going to look back on and we're going to be able to pinpoint, all right, I think this comes in a lot of, these moments come in people's lives, but it's not something that's a global phenomenon where something happens and you say to yourself, I don't know that I want to be around you anymore. Whether it's something happens at a bar. You hear this person talk about how they really feel about a certain something, or maybe a certain group of people, maybe, I don't know, something that is 100% counter to your baseline philosophies. 2020 offered that, and again, this is doom and gloom. 2020 offered that in spades when it came to people, when it comes to how people view science, how people view different people, how people view times and moments of crises, where you have to buckle the fuck down and do what you have to do. All of those things combined, and I'm not saying I'm going to completely abandon people, but it definitely has shifted the way I look at certain people and their resiliencies and their, for lack of a better way to put it, their strengths. It's made me really look at adults that I used to consider to be adults that are older than me and say, you're acting contrary to how you're supposed to be representing as elders. You know, like you're supposed to be
like modeling
strong.
Yeah.
And the type of behavior you're exhibiting, you would tell us if we were exhibiting that behavior in normal circumstances that we're being children.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not pinpointing someone individually. It's just, you know, calling back to the haircut thing or whatever, blissfully thinking that we're not in a situation, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a pandemic. You know, it could be a robbery. It could be a fire, something. If you're not going to handle it with the adequacy that you need to, for me, it's just, for lack of a better way to put it, you are a danger to me. You are a danger to me and the people that I love. And I'm being very selective now as to, I don't know that, I mean, I'll be around you, but I don't know if I want to be completely invested in you. You know what I mean? And I think that's what 2020 has offered to people, whatever side you're on. Like, I imagine people on the other side are saying, you're letting this virus overrun you with fear. And I can't be with people that are fearful. To which we would respond, I can't be with people that cannot see the dangers of their actions, because that's, you know, that in and of itself is dangerous. Just using that as an example. But, you know, the pandemic aside, how you respond to people that just want equal rights, the same rights as you.
I guess this is kind of what I was trying to say. Not that we're abandoning our old, you know, family and friends that we've had forever.
I'm not abandoning
whatever.
anybody,
No, but
I'm certainly
saying,
looking at them differently.
Well, I'm more looking at it as the people that we've gained in our lives and the people that at least for me, people I'm talking to more often who I didn't really know very well in the past. I feel like because it has been so clearly illuminated of where people stand on these really important things, it's kind of allowed me to like be able to see, okay, like you're like, these are my people. Like I'm like seeing people from different parts of my life who I've never really been super close to. And I mean, that's a result of social media, I guess. Like you see people posting things, or you see people sharing things, or you start talking about things where you connect on and you feel the same about these critical, really important things. And if you're on the same page about the types of things we're talking about with someone, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to have a decent relationship with that person. And that's the kind of person that you want to have in your life. So that's what I'm saying is I feel like I've been able to connect with people because people's views on these very important issues have been so well illuminated this year that I've reached out and connected more with people that I otherwise might not have, because there wasn't that point of connection. Like there wasn't that similarity, and that was made so obvious where I'm like, yes, you're someone that I want to have in my life because we agree on these things and you share these values, and that's very important to me.
Yeah. You know, it's made me value people's rather the aspect of having sensibilities and having intuitive notion towards the greater good. And when you see people complaining about not getting their haircuts, or complaining about people kneeling, or complaining about not being able to just live their lives, and living in fear, that just screams to me that you're selfish. You're just selfish. And, the greater good requires selflessness. And to me, that is what I have gained, I think, in 2020, is a greater importance for other people by restricting myself. I've never had to do that so much, by cutting back on my activities for people I don't know. Now, primarily it's for someone like you who has asthma, and of course my mom who's elderly. That's primarily the reason. But all in all, it's a utilitarian approach that you're doing
your part,
the best for the greater good.
Yeah.
And I just can't see how someone that is saying, I just want to live my life, you're not doing anything for anybody but yourself.
Right. We all want to live our lives. We all want to get back to normal.
And we're taught to not be selfish. We're taught by our elders to look out for people and do what it takes so people can thrive.
Mm-hmm.
But when shit hits the fan, like this 2020 pandemic has done, you see people's real sense of what is important to them.
I'm not taking away any personal responsibility there, but that's also where we need leadership to model that.
Yes.
And we were sorely lacking that in this pandemic.
Well, hopefully 2021, we'll talk about this next week.
Yeah.
But hopefully a flip is switched. And my only hope, my New Year's resolution, at least for me, and I hope for the rest of the country, not that I don't want politics to be important. I just want them to be boring again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to look at people anymore and say, you are representative or a part of this party, get the fuck out of my face. I don't want that anymore, because I reflect back on like times, for instance, when I was in a band. I was in a band with 3 other people. Our political views couldn't have been more different, but we never talked about it.
Yeah.
And we were in a room creating art together without even that on our minds. Didn't ever come up. Was it never talked about. And we just got along. And we worked together for a common goal. That needs to happen again. And I'm hoping we will see that in 2021.
Those were the days of blissful ignorance for a lot of us.
I just don't know that adults were dissimilar at the time.
Yeah. I mean, we're obviously in a very divisive place right now. And I think I'm hoping that we can get back to a place in politics where the people representing us don't automatically represent these other things that, like, we talked about this before, like you could be a Democrat or Republican. It doesn't have to mean that one party is racist and one party is not. There's racism throughout everyone in the community and in, regardless of your political view, but it's become so categorized now because of the people that we have had in office that have made it that way.
Right.
So I'm hoping we can get away from, not move away from addressing those issues. We need to continue the momentum to address those issues. But I understand what you're saying.
All right, let's wrap it up here. We went a little long. We're approaching.
2020 was a long fucking year.
We're approaching an hour and 20, so that will do it. So look, if you have any specific memories about 2020 that you'd like to share with us, please do. I'm sure I missed something. I'm sure I missed an important person that has, maybe had an untimely death. To me, the 2 that stick out the most, or 3 rather, were Kobe, Chadwick, and RBG. Mm-hmm. Again, if someone else passed away that I forgot to mention, it doesn't mean they weren't important. It's just it didn't pop up in my research. But
we also might have missed some good events. I feel like
Yeah.
there might have been some
sure we
sprinkled
did.
in there. Hey, we're getting $600.
hey, we got $1,200.
Well, I'm saying 600 each.
Hey, we might get $2,000 if
No,
Trump gets
no,
his way.
he signed it.
Oh, he did.
He signed the $600 person
Oh.
stimulus.
All right.
Yeah, he signed it tonight. We're recording Sunday night.
Sure.
Yep.
All right, so whatever.
Don't
we got
spend it all in one
1,200.
place.
We got 1,200 before. There you go. That was cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. That being said, we appreciate you listening to us this far. If you have any 2020 moments that you'd like to share, personal or otherwise, please do. And if you want to weigh in on 2021 for our upcoming episode and discuss what you want to see, please do. You can do so by hitting up our social medias.
So we are on Facebook at facebook.com/whileshe'ssnapping. We'll be putting any polls or anything for your feedback on Instagram, which is at whileshe'snapping. We're also on Twitter at she'snappingpod, or you can email us at whileshe'snapping@gmail.com.
So hit us up. Let us know what you think. And until next week, Happy New Year. And I hope your holiday was great. But
A better year to come.
here's to 2021. Peace.
Bye.